What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here for PackersNews.com, live on Facebook Sunday afternoon. Wasn't sure if it was morning or afternoon. They all blend together with the news, of course, breaking that the Green Bay Packers are set to make Brian Gutekunst their next general manager. Mark Murphy obviously making the decision on Gutekunst over both Elliott Wolf, the man who hired Gutekunst, and Russ Ball, the longtime cap manager and right-hand man of Ted Thompson. Obviously, lots of questions will be surrounding the future of both of those gentlemen who did not get the job. Only way we can really be sure is to let this thing play out. I would tend to think Russ Ball sticks around to work with Brian. As for Elliott, anything is possible. I could see him staying. I could see him landing maybe out in Oakland with John Gruden, maybe in Cleveland with John Dorsey. Any number of possibilities. It's definitely something that is up in the air. 600 people instantly jump on, lets you know that there's great interest, so let's throw it open and see what's on your minds out there. Reacting to the news, the Packers have hired Brian Gutekunst as their next general manager. John says, I like Wolf, but Brian Gutekunst was a safe, smart hire. Well, only time will tell. I mean, Brian is obviously well regarded within the building and around the league, considering the number of interviews he's had over the course of the last few years. Obviously, he's a bit older than Elliott, roughly 10 years. Interestingly enough, Brian Gutekunst was born 2 days after I was, so I think we're all pretty clear at who's done more with their time on this earth. Preach to me, Aaron. Tell me the goods and the bads of today's events. Well, there's really no way to know good or bad until we watch Brian control the job and take a hold of this Packers franchise. And to be clear, I know there were initial reports out there that he and Russ Ball may or would split the duties, both kind of sharing the general manager spot. That is incorrect. Those initial reports were incorrect. This is Brian's job. It's Brian Gutekunst's job. He is number one in charge of football operations at 1265 Lombardi. He was going to interview for the Houston job. Yes, Virginia, he absolutely was. Will the new general manager be more aggressive in free agency? Perry, only time will tell. I will say, I know from talking to many people inside 1265 Lombardi, almost all of the guys underneath Ted Thompson were frustrated with his passive approach to free agency. So I would tend to think, yes, and I would also add it's going to be pretty hard for Brian to be less aggressive than Ted Thompson when it comes to free agency. Did Aaron Rodgers chime in about the choice? Not that I know of. I mean, possibly, maybe he was consulted behind closed doors. Obviously, he hasn't said anything publicly. He hasn't even said anything publicly about the movement from Ted Thompson, which I find interesting. But no, we don't know if Aaron Rodgers was consulted at all. It doesn't sound like he would have been. So McCarthy is going to stay now? Yes, David. I tend to think that was more smoke than fire in regards to McCarthy leaving. But yeah, I know that Gutekunst and McCarthy have a very good working relationship, so I'm sure he'll be sticking around. Will Thompson have a lot of influence on Brian? I tend to think no. I mean, I think he'll be there as a sounding board if he ever has questions or wants Ted's opinion on something, whether it's a prospect or a move he's going to make. But it's Brian's show, and I think Thompson will very much cede into the background. He'll be breaking down tape in a dark room office somewhere there at 1265 Lombardi, or he'll be on the road scouting, prospects from big schools to small. I really don't think Ted Thompson's going to be involved much in the day-to-day operations or formation of the team whatsoever. He's going to be a scout. It's what he loves. He's always done best. And they're going to let him do that. Would rather have had someone who's done this before. Well, I mean, they definitely tried and they reached out, guys like John Schneider, etc. But ultimately, you look around the league, your track records are fine and good, but lots of guys are given this position and succeed who have never done it before. Lots of guys who've got lots of experience get these jobs and fail. So it's really a crapshoot and really about feel and fit, and clearly Mark Murphy thought this was the best in both of those regards. Who does Brian Gutekunst pick in the first round? Chris? I have no idea. They're going to promote Wolf to keep him in the building. It's a possibility. Yeah, and as you mentioned there, Virginia, Gutekunst is getting a 5-year deal. which isn't, I guess insanely long, but in the NFL, that's a pretty good long time. And I have real trouble believing that Elliott's going to want to stick around for 5 years twiddling his thumbs until his next possible chance of being general manager in Green Bay. Lots of questions, obviously, about Elliott Wolf, for good reason. It's really to be determined at this point. I think all possibilities are open. I could see him sticking around. I could see him jumping. Really no way of knowing where his head's at. But I'm sure we will find out in the coming weeks. Let's see. What's Brian's background? Well, Garrett, he born into a football family. He's part of the Ron Wolf scouting tree. In fact, Elliott Wolf hired him, which is kind of ironic given today's events. But he's a scout, pure through and through, football guy through and through. If you need, or if you're jonesing for more information on Brian, we've got a couple things up at PackersNews.com already. One is Ryan Wood with the breakdown of the news of the day, and two, Brian did a bit of an overview on Gutekunst yesterday, and I'm sure that's on our homepage right now. Make sure you check PackersNews.com for all of that. Brian was in Texas to interview. Has anyone interviewed Wolf? Not this year, not that I know of. Is this the type of GM who would trade for Blake Bortles? I don't think so. Now Nagler is going to have to pronounce Gutekunst's name properly. You'll notice I've nailed it every time I've said it today. I've been practicing just for this occasion, man. Don't say that I don't prepare and put 100% in. Thank you very much. I don't see anything on his resume deserving to be general manager. That's interesting. You mean being in the organization for as many years as he has and being promoted every step of the way and attempting to be hired by the San Francisco 49ers only to withdraw his name to stay in Green Bay and then also be on the front list for the general manager spot in Houston? It's pretty clear he's more than qualified, and several teams around the league seem to agree. But, you don't like his resume. I understand. Please tell me we will be more aggressive in free agency. Obviously, this is going to be a recurring question/theme, and I'll keep saying the same thing. It's going to be hard to be less aggressive in free agency. Where does this leave Russ Ball? From initial conversations with people inside the building, it sounds like Russ will stick around and continue in the same capacity that he worked with Thompson for so many years. But those are just initial feelings. That's not any official word from Russ Ball. We'll see how it plays out. So that person wanted a GM that had been a GM before? Yeah, and I understand that thinking. That's not to say that wanting experience in the job is a bad thing. I do understand the Packers going with a guy who's been in-house for a long time and knows their way of working, comes from a tree of really successful candidates. And to that end, you talk about, I really wanting someone who's done it before, etc. Ron Wolf's tree has produced a whole lot of guys who have gone out and done it without having been a general manager before, whether it's John Schneider, whether it's Reggie McKenzie, whether it's John Dorsey. All of them had not been general managers before. All of them went out and built really successful squads, added a lot of talent. So I'm pretty sure at this point, Ron Wolf's kind of way of working and or legacy and or tree is pretty solid as far as if you want a guy who is going to be a scout at heart and is going to build a roster and is going to build a competitive team that competes and goes to playoffs and competes for championships, you could do a lot worse. He sounds like a solid choice. What's his relationship with Wolf? Brian, that's a really good question in light of the last hour or so. I know they're professionally really good, and I assume friendly with each other. I know Elliott hired Brian, which makes today a little odd, but as far as I know, things are great between them. So I would tend to think one of Brian's first acts would be to reach out to Elliott and tell him he wants him to stick around. But I can't even imagine how awkward that's got to be between the two of them at the moment. Chris, I like it. Why would anyone want that loudmouth Sherman on the Packers? You're talking about Richard Sherman? Man, that's a jump in topic right there. Non sequitur online too. What's up with people giving all the angry faces? Man, people are angry about something all the time. It doesn't matter. You could sit here and say the Packers won the Super Bowl. They got 3 extra first-round picks and free ice cream for everybody, and there would still be angry faces. So don't pay any mind to those. Will Brian draft non-Packer people? Nice question, Sam. As we all know, Packer people is just a PR slogan. It doesn't really mean anything. Cy, not too sure about this choice, but at this point, anything has to be an improvement. Not so sure about your detective work there. We don't know what it is. And it's not necessarily a given that it's an improvement. An improvement from being a Super Bowl contender year in and year out, making the playoffs 8 years in a row, winning the division more often than not, being in the mix to be in the Super Bowl every single year. I don't know. It's hard to say that anything would be an improvement over that. Sorry, guys. There's no way to know if this is good or bad. Assume good. That's a healthy attitude. I like it. I think the Packers will acquire any of the coaches from the Patriots staff. Dustin, I highly doubt it. Sounds like, so far anyway, Mike McCarthy is very much bringing in guys that he's familiar with, whether it is Joe Philbin or the wide receivers coach from the Colts, whose name escapes me at the moment, but he was on Mike's staff in San Francisco. So those are guys, obviously, that have relationships with Mike throughout the years. Defensive-wise, I tend to think he's waiting for Tuesday when Vic Fangio's contract is up and he can talk to them. He doesn't need to get permission from the Bears, unless Fangio is made head coach of the Bears, and then he'll obviously have to switch gears. But that's just guesswork on my part, but that's what I tend to think he's waiting for. Defensive coordinator and good draft sound like a good move, and I'll be happy. Yeah, that's, I mean, they really are. If they have a decent draft and make one or two moves, they should be in contention. Mike McCarthy is putting the band back together. Yes, he is. At least his press conferences will be better than Ted's. Martin, I don't know. He's definitely, he's stepped up to the podium on draft weekend, and he's had to answer questions, and he's been forthcoming, etc., but I don't know. We'll see. Ted had a great sense of humor. That'll be tough to beat. I know everyone will think I'm crazy, but it's true. Ted Thompson was hilarious when he wanted to be. David, thank you. Thanks so much for saying so. It's very nice of you to say. Bears denied Bengals today. They have plans for Fangio. It's possible. So how long will it take? I think Gutekunst being a personnel person, we will be a whole lot more aggressive in free agency, which is amazing. Again, it'll be hard to be less aggressive, but as far as a whole lot, I don't know. The only way we will find out is to watch him operate. Julie says, Elliott is a way better choice. Well, Julie, Elliott would have been my choice. I've been very public about that. I understand Mark Murphy maybe being reticent to giving control to someone so young in the kind of pantheon of the NFL and the history of the Packers. I would have made Elliott the guy. I would have pulled that trigger, but clearly Murphy wanted to go with a little bit more maturity, so to speak, and it's hard to blame him, but we'll see what happens with Elliott down the road. These angry emojis are seriously disrespectful. No, people are allowed to feel how they feel. If people are angry, that's all right. We'll see how it plays out. Maybe Brian Gutekunst will turn these frowns upside down. We don't know. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. I got some other stuff I got to do. The Packers making me work on a Sunday. What is the world coming to? Oh, wait, I always work on a Sunday for the Packers. I thought being out of the playoffs meant that I wouldn't have to work on the weekends, but so much for that. Thanks so much, everyone. Make sure you're checking PackersNews.com for all the latest. We'll have all the breaking developments on the Brian Gutekunst hire. PackersNews.com. Keep it there. Thanks a lot, everyone. Talk to you soon.